Hey everyone, Sifu Anthony here, and in this video I want to talk about the 5 life lessons that Hurricane Irma taught me about my own Qigong and Tai Chi practice. I wrote a Facebook post about our saga with Hurricane Irma, but first let me just say that my wife and I are fine. We fared much better than other people through Hurricane Irma. And in fact, now Hurricane Maria is hitting the islands and Puerto Rico again, and it's just terrible. So although we had quite the week and quite an experience, it could have been much, much worse for us, and we're very grateful that things turned out as well as they did. I think that events like like Hurricane Irma can really, they bring some powerful life lessons or even spiritual lessons. And I just wanted to share those with you. I'm more motivated than ever to practice my Qigong and my Tai Chi. So if you're looking for motivation for any mindfulness art, a lot of this will specifically relate to Qigong and Tai Chi, but I think maybe this will help to reframe things so that you can motivate yourself in your own practice. So let's dive in. So the first lesson that I learned from Hurricane Irma is that we all need an emergency fund for Qi, right? So Qi is the vital substance, the energy that we deal with in Qigong and Tai Chi. This is what we're cultivating. We're cultivating energy, and as a result, our bodies get healthier, they function better, all of that good stuff, right? And in the world of Qigong and Tai Chi, we talk about building a reserve of Qi at Dantian. Dantian is located down here, the lower Dantian, and inside the body a little bit. So a lot of the exercises that we do, we finish by sort of settling the Qi down to Dantian, right? And over time, we gradually build what the classics describe as this golden pearl of energy at Dantian. But really the energy is not just at Dantian, it's all throughout the body. You've got all these channels and meridians, the same meridians that they use in acupuncture. And those are like rivers of energy that gradually fill up. And all of this adds up to one big reserve of Qi. And I tell you what, I needed all of it for Hurricane Irma. Now, the thing with hurricanes is that you have a lot of warning. We had days and days and days to prepare and days and days and days to freak out. So not only were we preparing the house and the property, my wife and I live just outside of Gainesville, Florida. We live just west of Gainesville, which is in the northern middle part of the state of Florida. And we had lots of prepping to do. We had to get the property ready. We had to pick up debris from the property because the winds can just pick things up and send it right into the house. I personally had to fill, I don't know how many sandbags I filled, a lot of sandbags. That was a tremendous amount of energy and focus all in one day. I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, and still I found it challenging. I needed all of that Qi. So there was the physical output of the preparation, right? All the stuff that needed to be done, a tremendous amount. The Floridians know what I'm talking about. But just trust me that there was a tremendous amount of stuff to do. But there was also the mental, emotional component. That is energy. That stress saps your energy. We were all kind of freaking out. The news kept changing and shifting, and Category 5, and some people were calling it a Category 6 storm because it was so powerful. And at one point, a couple days before, it looked like it was going to veer and go on a direct collision course with us, with Gainesville. So the lesson here for me was, okay, well, I've done pretty well. I practice Qigong and Tai Chi. I've been practicing for years, but I needed all of that reserved Qi. I've learned this the hard way in the past before with life stresses. You know, shit happens in life. It hits you. Life will happen to you, and you can't plan at the last minute. You can't plant a fruit tree the day before you want the fruit. You can't grow a retirement fund a month before you want to retire. And when it comes to Qi, you need to plan ahead. You need to be building that reserve ahead of time. You need to be planning for the long term in terms of building up your Qi to a greater and greater reserve through your practices so that when shit happens, when life happens, you have a buffer. You have an emergency fund of Qi. And as much as I practice quite a bit. I mean, more than most people, and I've been doing that for many, many years. And you know what? Even though I had enough for this crisis, I'm motivated to cultivate more, especially since Hurricane Maria, it looks like now she's going to miss us. But right after we finished with Hurricane Irma, there was this other hurricane in the Atlantic Basin, and a lot of us are thinking, oh no, is this going to happen again? Are we going to have to go through this again? Because I just used up all my energy, right? Well, here I am. I still got energy, but I need to replenish the chi that I used last week, right? It was an exhausting week. So this was a big lesson for me, is that we all need an emergency fund of chi. And, what better art than, I think Qigong is your primary way of doing that, because it's the art of energy cultivation. For those who are my students specifically, we need lots and lots of what we call gathering the chi. That skill is super important. However you're doing it, whether you're using the John Zhuang postures or some other method, you need to be spending a good amount of time gathering the chi and doing it ahead of time so you have that emergency fund of chi. Lesson number 2. Tai Chi is the most practical martial art in the world. I'm really comfortable saying that right now because I'm saying it in a way that might be different than other people. No, I didn't have to defend myself from hordes of zombies during Hurricane Irma, but I do have my Tai Chi sword and I have my Shaolin staff if I need to. What I'm talking about here is not so much, a physical fight, but the more likely fight that happens with life, with the fight that happens in the mental and emotional realm. So, okay, first of all, let me back up. Tai Chi is absolutely a martial art. If you did not know that, it's something I write about and blog about all the time. These moves are slow and beautiful, and yes, they cultivate energy, right? But each move that I'm doing right now is a martial arts move. Some of them are more obvious. Let's see if I can get it on camera. So punch below sleeves is obviously a punch, right? Jade Girl works the shuttle. Let's see if I can get this on the camera. This one, you may not know what it is, but this is a palm strike. This is, right? Blocking here, striking with the left hand. So it's absolutely a martial art. But was I using that during Hurricane Irma? No. But the great thing about Tai Chi is that I don't get in physical fights anymore. Those days are long over. The kind of fights I get into now are mental, emotional, and spiritual. The statistics are in. You're not likely to get in a physical confrontation. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it means that the statistics are low. It's a low risk problem. Whereas these other things, life happens and throws things at you all the time. So whereas I haven't been in an actual physical fight in over a decade, I use my Tai Chi in other ways every week. So in that case, I'm very comfortable saying Tai Chi is the most practical martial art in the world. Lesson number 3 that I learned is that square breathing saves the day. Square breathing is really simple. Let's see if I can draw this on the camera somehow. So it'd be like this: breathing in, pausing, breathing out, pausing. You can breathe in and out through the nose or whatever you like. Sometimes in my classes, the main Qigong method that we use for breathing is in gently through the nose and then out gently through the mouth. It's not so important in this technique. What's important is that you get the proportions of the breath equal, like a square. That's what I just drew, is a square there. 2 seconds breathing in, 2 seconds pausing, 2 seconds breathing out, 2 seconds pausing. And if it's 3 seconds, it's the same. So, okay, that's square breathing. So I was pleasantly surprised to learn that the Navy SEALs had adopted square breathing for, this is special forces. These are the super elite, right? And they're under a tremendous amount of pressure. They face these situations that most of us can hardly imagine. And I think sometimes they're calling it now box breathing instead of square breathing. Either way, it's the idea is the same. This is a traditional breathing technique found in many like Qigong traditions, and I think probably yoga has it. I don't know what they call it in the yoga tradition. But square breathing is something that you can do in the moment. It's better if you practice it beforehand, but once you've practiced it a little bit, you've got the hang of it. If you can remember to do it while shit is happening. We're watching these waters rise and wondering if the waters are going to continue to rise into the house. and you got to make some decisions, and you got to try to think clearly, and it's scary, and we don't have a lot of news. There's no power. What tool do you use in that situation when the pressure is right there, and you can't necessarily go do your Qigong practice, right? You could maybe, but what if you don't have time? That's where square breathing saves the day, because you can do it right then and there. People won't even notice. I don't even know if my parents noticed that I was doing it. You're just doing your breathing. Let's see if I can narrate that with the square. You see? You get the hang of that? And what it does is it powerfully relaxes your nervous system, which is what you want, because while you shift into fight or flight, you need some of that to focus and to fight the flood or whatever's going on, but you don't want to go too far into fight or flight. That's when you lose control. That's when you can't focus, you get tunnel vision, and you can't make decisions, you can't think, people freeze. That's if we get too far into the fight or flight. So if this is the middle, we got fight or flight and rest and restore, so sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. If this is right in between, it's okay to be on this side into the sympathetic realm. For example, during a fight, a self-defense scenario, you don't want to be over here. You don't want to be too relaxed. You want to be in sympathetic, but you want it to be controlled, not over here. That's when you freeze. Am I still on camera here? I think so. Okay, so what you want to be able to do is manage your sympathetic nervous system and pull it back from the precipice there. And square breathing is super helpful for that. You don't need a lot of training for square breathing. In fact, maybe this video would be enough. I have some other videos someplace. I'll link to those later. And practice it ahead of time so that you can do it in an emergency situation. It can be amazingly helpful. It could save the day, and it could even save your life. Lesson number 4 that I learned is that meditating on death really can save your life. I've blogged about this. It's an ancient technique called Maranasati. That's an ancient Buddhist or Zen technique, and it really quite simply means meditating on death or awareness of death. We have almost the exact same thing in the ancient Greek tradition. It's called memento mori, which just means like remembrance of death. Okay, so the ancient Stoics practice this. The Buddha practiced this. I practice this, and as morbid as it might sound, it's not morbid. It might sound morbid, but it's incredibly helpful. So I'll give you an example. During the hurricane, it was hard to tell the threat level. And part of that is something called the normalcy bias. This is a human psychological phenomenon. We're just biased towards things being normal. Even Floridians, we've been through it. We've been through many, many hurricanes. The joke is that most people, when they prepare for hurricanes, they go buy flashlights and batteries and things like that. And Floridians, usually when they prepare for hurricanes, they go buy beer, right? Because usually it means a hurricane party, because we've been through them. They're usually not that big a deal. Only every once in a while are they a big deal. So, things are just sort of normal. It's not that big of a deal. But Irma was different. Hurricane Irma was different. Regardless of what ended up happening, the threat was real. There was potential for tremendous loss of life there. Maranasati, this death meditation technique, I believe helps to prepare us for this kind of situation. Kind of like the old Zen warriors that they were prepared to die any day. They trained with their Zen meditation and their swords, and they were prepared to go out, and every day could be their last day. So therefore, every day was sort of the best day because they were living it to the fullest potential. And I believe there's something there, that they weren't avoiding death and they were more fully alive, and thus they were also more prepared. They were not afraid of death. They didn't just push death off into the distance and ignore it. They didn't stick their head in the sand. They were truly prepared mentally and emotionally and spiritually to die any day. Being aware of it can help you live more fully alive, and it can really help you through a crisis as well. And I personally am going to practice the technique more often now after Hurricane Irma. It really taught me I already thought the technique was valuable, and now I think it's even more valuable. The 5th thing that Hurricane Irma taught me is that gratitude is the only thing that matters. So if you know me and you know the way that I teach, you know that I'm really big on the whole subject of gratitude in a variety of ways. And this experience with Hurricane Irma just reaffirmed that for me. So for example, we were without power for several days, and in fact, by the time Akemi and I got home, Akemi is my wife, but by the time we got home, we had no power, no water, our cell phone signals weren't working, AT&T, there was no signal whatsoever. We couldn't find one at all, so we couldn't connect, and no internet, obviously. And when those things came back on, wow, right? How amazing is running water when you've not had it for 2 or 3 days. When all of those things come back, you're so grateful for, wow, no line at the gas station. Wow, running water. Wow, power, internet. My cell phone signal never really did come back. That's another issue I'll have to take up with AT&T. But it was so easy to practice gratitude right after the crisis, right? I'm sure many of you, if you went through Hurricane Irma or Hurricane, I haven't mentioned really much about Harvey in Texas, the same thing. You know, you guys went through it too in Texas, and afterwards, after things got a little bit back to normal, how grateful you were, and then what happens? What happens after that? Right? You forget. You forget to feel grateful. This is why it's important to practice gratitude. That not just talk about gratitude and not talk about practicing it, not talk about the merits of gratitude and how spiritual it is and all these things, but do you actually practice? It's like the difference between talking about meditating and are you a meditator? Do you practice regularly? There's a big difference. Is there a way through practice for me to really every day feel grateful for running water, to feel grateful for electricity, internet, gasoline? What about people? People in your life. You know, were you scared for somebody, especially those of you outside of Florida or outside of Texas? Were you scared for somebody? Well, gratitude is a really important practice. It's something that I believe might just be the great secret to life, that if you are actively practicing it, if you find ways to practice it, it's not just one practice, it's a skill really, it's an art of practicing gratitude in a variety of different ways, then your life will be more meaningful. You'll feel more connected to your own life, to the people in your life, even the people who are physically distant from you. And you maybe feel more connected to nature, to the cosmos, to God, to whatever you call it. That if you're looking for an entryway, gratitude is it. Gratitude is the way. It's like the on-ramp to real-world, practical 21st century spirituality. It really is. If you are practicing gratitude regularly, meaning either every day or a couple times a week, then that's a spiritual practice and a really practical one. It's not easy to do. I'm not saying that you should be, there's no shame or guilt here that if you're not as grateful a week from now as you are today or the day after the crisis is over, that there's something wrong with you. That's just something to shoot for. You've had that experience of, I am so grateful for running water after Hurricane Irma. So work back towards that. Practice gratitude until you feel something like that again. Can you feel gratitude on a regular basis? And if not, well, then you just need to practice more. You need to find other ways to practice gratitude, and don't wait for a crisis. Practice now, feel it more and more, and then of course something will happen in your life. Life will try to wake you up, and then when it does, you can just go deeper into your gratitude practice. That's what I'm going to do now. That's one of the things that Hurricane Irma also taught me. If you guys like this, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll do more of these. This is relatively easy, especially as I get the hang of this whole technology thing. I'll figure it out pretty quickly, but it's relatively easy for me to go live and to do sort of a video blog post like this. Alrighty, I'm going to sign off. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you someplace out there in the Facebook and the Flowing Zen world.